Hi, I'm Eric, and this is Adventures in Golf. 100 years ago, if you were looking for one of the best courses on the planet, you would have found yourself here in the middle of Long Island. But that course doesn't exist anymore. Or does it? 1,000 miles away and over 80 years later, golf's most exciting restoration project nears completion here in Wisconsin.
Welcome aboard.
I had a simulator in my basement, and my kids were young, and I started to figure out that I could design courses on the software that they could play.
This is Peter Flory, a financial consultant and now part-time golf historian. While looking for work-life balance, he became intrigued with an emerging technology.
So I started out designing 50-yard holes that they could hit on, and then once I got a little bit better at it, I was a member at Olympia Fields, and they had 2 lost golf courses, and I kind of had the idea that maybe if I poke around, I could figure out what those were. I was fascinated with these great things that used to exist that no longer did, and some of them people had information, some there was like no information, and that made it kind of more tempting to try to figure them out. At that point, I had the confidence that I think I could tackle the holy grail of lost golf courses.
A lost golf course is a course that time forgot. Whether it no longer exists as it was originally designed, or in some cases completely replaced with a residential community, the one referred to the most is the Lido Golf Club, a C.B. Macdonald design originally built with Seth Rayner on New York's Long Island.
You know, people have talked about trying to do a replica of this golf course for 10 or 15 years or even longer. I've heard people talk about the idea.
I was introduced to it 13 years ago, but didn't know it well. When I went down the rabbit hole in early 2019, there was no turning back. There was no chance it wasn't going to happen.
What is it about the Lido Golf Club that fuels the desire to bring it back? Let's dive into the history and find out. Opened in 1917, the Lido began as an architectural marvel, as much of the course was built on marshy swampland that required over 2 million cubic yards of sand to be brought in. The result was a 130-acre blank canvas.
The original Lido was very much like McDonald's ideal course. It's like you can move all the dirt you want, you can, in theory, spend all the money you want to create this thing that you haven't been able to build anywhere else. And that's what hooked him into the project, the idea that he could really create, not just fit the holes he liked to a piece of land, but actually like create the whole thing. Because back then, that was unheard of.
Upon its completion, the Lido quickly became ranked among the best golf course designs in the world, synonymous with the likes of Ballybunion, Pine Valley, Shinnecock, and National Golf Links.
I think for many of us, their first introduction is like in 2D, right? So you see it, there's 130 bunkers, you see the bunkers, you can imagine templates, and it's intriguing. But then as you start to begin to understand the course in 3D, and then as a sequential routing, it just gets better and better and better and better.
So what happened to this exceptional course? How did it become lost? A lot of it comes down to timing. First, the course became neglected during the Great Depression and portions of the property were sold off. Then, what remained of the course was occupied by the U.S. Navy during World War II. With too much to come back from, the Lido officially closed in 1942 and would later be called the greatest course you'll never play.
So here's an example of the 15th hole for a hickory golfer. Carrying this bunker would have been about 245 yards, which would be about the distance that a pro at that point, I would say, could carry a well-struck hickory shot.
Peter is showing me some of the painstaking work he has done to reconstruct a virtual version of the Lido, a passion project that he started back in 2018.
It starts with two-dimensional aerials when you're you can only see it in 2D, and that's the easy part. Is you could easily overlay that on Google Earth. You could trace it. You can convert that to a program and get it locked in 2-dimensionally. But the 3-dimension part is the problem. You have a digital bulldozer, and you're kind of sculpting things, looking at them from different angles, trying to compare to the pictures. And that's good in areas where there's photos, but a lot of the course didn't have photos. So when I started this, I would publish some of my findings on Golf Club Atlas and say, here's what I'm doing. I started with the 8th hole, and I'm like, here's the photos I have, here's what it's looking like. And I just got flooded with personal messages and emails and little bits of information. Someone would send me, hey, don't know if this is helpful, you probably already have this, but just in case here. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't have that. And it changes everything. I'm like, yeah, it refines that hole. And it was definitely a community effort. People were fascinated with it before I even had any interest in golf architecture at all. And so people had done a lot of study on it and research, and it was fun taking it from that stage sort of over the goal line.
As Peter's virtual course was taking shape, it's no surprise that it caught the eye of Michael and Chris Kaiser, whose interest in reconstructing the Lido course was something that their father once thought of doing at Bandon Dunes. Ultimately, that location wasn't right for it, and course architects Tom Doak and Jim Urbina created a course that celebrates C.B. Macdonald instead. Now, over a decade later, the Kaisers once again look to Doak to bring the original Lido course back to life.
I felt like if you're going to really call it the Lido, then you really are obliged to build it as close as you can to the Lido and not just use the name to sell a McDonald-ish golf course. So, I had to get over the hump of, is the information accurate enough to that I'm on board with this? Because I didn't think I could just draw a map of it myself. I mean, you could get it right in 2D, but there's a hell of a difference between 2D and 3D. I was probably about 75-80% done with it when Tom Doak contacted me on behalf of the Kaisers, and then soon after when I had a meeting with Michael Kaiser Jr., and he sort of floated the idea of them building the course for real.
What's the emotion when after you got off the phone with Tom Doak saying, I need you?
It was the weirdest thing ever. I mean, it was it was weird because, I had sort of already completed this thing and never ever had the ambition to think that anyone would build it for real. So it was weird when it went from 0 to 100% probability of being built in like 1 second. That was crazy.
The Kaisers are not the only ones bringing the Lido back to life. Architect Gil Hans has reinterpreted the Lido's 18 template holes in Thailand for the private Ban Rakat Club. But while the course utilizes the same order of holes except switching the 2nd and 6th, it is not the faithful recreation Peter has worked on for years to create.
Peter had this great video model of the golf course, but I started asking Michael questions about, well, I just don't understand the medium that well. How do we take a video looking thing and turn it into a map? And Michael and Peter didn't really know the answer either, and I'm like, uh-oh, if I got to draw the map, I'm kind of back to square one. It's all on my shoulders. And then Michael said, well, there's somebody working on the golf course who Craig Haltom says, thinks he can make a map of it. And I said, okay.
How long have you been working here?
Well, before they started building a course.
This is Brian Ziegler, a local golf lover who positioned himself to be in the right place at the right time.
I was working at a day job for a software educational company in Rapids, but I had been recreating golf courses for simulators because that's mostly what they pay you for in simulators is big name golf courses. And I kind of perfected techniques for using LiDAR and tracing satellite photos and getting all the details right of recreating a golf course. So I quit my job, did a little bit of the golf course simulator, and then eventually that wasn't quite working out as a full-time job, so I started working on the ground screw out here and doing both things at the same time.
And that's fine, but that's not really what you...
Not exactly. You know, it's just a kind of a way to get out here and be out here every day because it's such a cool place. And
Yeah, it's just so interesting because then, like, a lot like the story with Peter, where it's like he's just kind of doing his thing, like,
Yeah.
you know, and same with you. You're just kind of like, okay, fine, I'll do that, and then all of a sudden, I guess
yeah,
you have the real opportunity to contribute to something.
I heard from Craig Haltom of Olafon. He said, "Hey, you think you can make topo maps out of this?" I'm like, "Oh, I've never done that before, but I'll see what I can do with this LiDAR data that is, you know, publicly available and scanned." That's kind of how I make the golf courses for the simulators.
And like a month later, they sent me a map. And I was like, holy crap.
Finally, everything was coming together. And by early 2021, 80 years after closing, construction of a new Lido course was underway in central Wisconsin, just across the road from the Kaiser Sand Valley Resort. So what was the experience like when you first saw the work being done here?
The biggest realization was the scale of it. I got used to it on a little screen, and you know, you pan around, and then I come out here, I'm like, oh man, no trees, the wind is whipping, sand is in my face, and some of the shots on the computer that were sort of easy digitally, all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't imagine hitting the shot in a tournament from 240-yard par 3 with ocean on one side. It just struck me how difficult the course would have been.
The new Lido course is set to open in the spring of 2023 as a private course with limited access for Sand Valley Resort guests. You've spent hundreds of hours looking at the Lido, and you've spent a handful standing on it. Have you played it?
I'm not. I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, what the hell is that going to be like?
It'll be one of the strangest golf experiences of my life, I would imagine. I played it in my head. I've played it with a mouse. I've played it with a controller. Purposely held off playing it on the simulator, but it'll be crazy.
The course has been fully seeded and is playable at this time. And while it will undoubtedly look different as the grass fills in, today I have the incredible honor of being amongst the first to play all 18 holes of the Lido. This is kind of a moment. We're about to do something that's never happened.
This wasn't planned. It was a bit of an audible at lunchtime, but we realized there was an ability to cut 18 cups, so this will be the first well-constituted 18-hole round at the Lido.
And so, you know, this is obviously not the properly mowed length of the tee box. It won't look like this.
You know, we'll see.
Some of them are mowed tight, some of them aren't.
Okay.
They're
And it's kind of mixed up in the round, too. It's like the first 2 holes are pretty rough, and then some good ones, and then 6 through 9 is pretty rough again, and then the back 9 is pretty strong.
How are you feeling, Peter? Are you
I'm ready to go.
fully constituted for this?
I was here like 45 minutes before you guys, so I'm ready to go.
So it's a match?
Yeah,
Alternate shot?
why don't I go on one so that you could play
All
more
right,
of
yeah,
our
that's right.
par
Alternate
threes?
shot. We won't tell. Yeah, got
Does
it.
that work?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, you're gonna use number 10, huh?
That went up into the hill.
Just straight as an arrow. Tom Doak, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen a fairway like this. Is this what would you call this fairway, Tom?
Rumply. It's just like...
Roughly. It really is roughly. So what you can't see is once you go over this bunker here,
Yeah.
it dips way down,
Okay.
and there is a bunker right in line with the pin.
Oh, okay.
It'll be all right.
Wow. Tom and Peter think they know everything about this course just because they played it on video games. You and I are going to show them that golf is just a free-flowing experience, right?
Sometimes you just got to be able to wheel the ball
Yeah.
in the hole.
Yeah, we're just willing this thing.
Okay, 2 down. For me, the saddest day is the day the course opens, right? And I wish I could just stand out there and, you know, feel really excited about it and cheer everybody on and look over it. And I wish that gave me more joy than it does. It's satisfying, but the process is so enjoyable. And my time is always 1, 2, 3, 10 years out. So my work's done. I love cheering on the team who carries it from there. But we just seeded the last hole at the Lido, and it's sort of sad for me because now that's done.
It's like when your child goes off to school. The Lido's going to meet the world.
Which is terrific, and I'm thrilled that the world will get to know the Lido as it should.
Nice shot, dude. Jeez, go in the hole. So this is the third tee. You can see the fourth green looks like it's in another state over there.
The golf course is bigger than the original because the original was on about 130 acres. And when you looked at the very first time I saw an aerial photo of it, I was like, how did somebody not get killed out there? I mean,
so much
it hit across a road 4 times, and the greens backed right up to a fairway going across behind them and stuff.
Right.
And it was just very tight. And there were at least 3 or 4 places. It's like, somebody's going to get hit for sure on that other hole. So we spaced things out a little wider. But by spacing the holes out a little bit, we've got room to make it longer if we want to, instead of just playing it at 6,500 yards like it was when it opened.
Yeah.
But, the one thing we were dead set on is if you stand on the middle tee on every hole, you're looking at exactly the hole that you were looking at in 1920.
It's that dedication to accuracy that inspired me to visit the original location of the Lido.
Lido Golf Course.
In 1949, this Lido Golf Club was opened just east of the original location, touting a Robert Trent Jones design. But I'm curious to find out what people here know of the course's history.
Wow, the town of Hempstead was founded in 1644.
And my first stop is the Pro Shop.
If I could just ask a few questions
Go where's Steve at the
Where's Steve?
starter house. The starter house.
Steve knows about the history?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Go where's Steve.
I'm gonna go tell him you sent me.
No problem.
Say,
Yeah, tell him we're telling you to go to the oldest guy in the place.
are you Steve?
Yes.
Steve, in the pro shop they told me that you're the oldest guy here.
The oldest guy here?
That's what they told me to tell you.
Veteran golfer.
We're actually looking to hear some history about the golf course.
Turns out Steve was the right guy to talk to.
Is there any remnants of the original golf course here?
Some of the stuff was replicated, like our signature hole,
Okay.
which is 16.
Is that the par 3?
That's the par 5 channel hole.
Okay.
A great muni course in its own right, this RTJ design is flat with lots of amazing water views, but it has little in common with its namesake, other than the course's signature hole, number 16, which, as Steve mentioned, is a replica of the original 4th hole called the channel hole.
So it's driving over water, and then you're driving over water again. So there's bridges that go across.
This kind of existed in the original layout?
Yeah.
Steve also points us in the direction of the only remaining sign that the original Lido course ever existed.
When you go down, you'll see the Lido Hotel, which is now condos.
Okay.
That was the original hotel back in the 20s.
No way.
Yeah, so, this was the Hamptons in the 20s.
Really?
The roaring
This
20s.
was fancy
There
and
was no
exclusive.
Hamptons. This was the Hamptons. So all the people from Manhattan, Rockefellers,
Okay.
anybody who was loaded and wealthy, this is where they came.
Completed in 1929, the 300-room hotel was a lavish resort with a private beach and cabanas, indoor and outdoor swimming pools, tennis courts, and of course, one of the world's greatest golf courses. Converted into apartments in the early 80s, the building stands merely as a reminder of what once was.
What do you think, so?
Channel hole.
No big deal. No big deal. I mean, that is, how tall is the green?
I don't know the exact number. I guess 14 feet. Peter might know
It
the
looks so
exact
tall from here.
number.
This is probably the most famous hole on the Lido. The one thing we couldn't build for our golf course was the fact that the original sat between the Intercoastal Waterway, which was on the north side of the property right there,
Okay.
and the ocean on the south side of the property.
Right. Yes, get right. Oh my God.
It's not the cut.
Where is that going?
It's on the 12th
Is that on
green.
the 12th green?
You could either go for it in 2 by hitting to like an island fairway and then over water and over a big cross bunker to the green.
Okay.
Or you played way the heck left off the tee and hit over the water on the 2nd and up here with the 3rd.
Interesting.
in the day, this was kind of revolutionary. You know, Peter got crazy and started like taking all the pictures and like triangulating like every picture where you could see this green in the distance.
Right.
He would think, okay, if that fairway is that high and this green is that much higher and you can still see this, then it must be even higher than that.
Like it's
And
all
he was
just...
doing math.
Wow.
But the math turned out to be like, this is like a 10-foot deep bunker, which I wasn't really expecting.
This is bigger than it was. Or you believe this is...
No, we believe this is the right height for this bunker. Boop.
There it is. Right. First putt of the match.
What was it for you? Was it that it was CB McDonald? What was it that made it a thing to be doable?
I think, you know, this particular golf course had so much history behind it. I mean, it was like, you know, Bobby Jones played qualifying for the U.S. Open on it. You know, every great writer and player back in those days commented on it. And they'd all seen it because it was close to New York City, so everybody went there at some point or another. So it felt like the one lost golf course that you could kind of like, that was possible to recapture that.
And we can't talk about history without bringing up the story behind the Lido's 18th hole.
They had a competition at Country Life magazine in the UK to design an ideal golf hole that we'll maybe not use it exactly, but we'll adapt for our 18th hole. And, you know, the winning one was Alister McKenzie's.
Dr. Alister McKenzie won with this multi-route par 4 entry. Little known at the time, having only designed a handful of courses, the success of his winning entry would give him national and international notoriety, effectively launching his legendary career.
But the unknown part of it is that they ran it for like 3 or 4 weeks in their magazine, and they showed some of the runners-up, and McDonald used a couple of the other runner-up ideas on this golf course too.
When I start researching, I'm like, oh, this contest entry that lost looks a whole lot like this hole that they built. That was kind of the nice surprise. I'm like, okay, there's 2 other guys who didn't win the contest who also had their holes built, and no one ever talks about them. And one of them was Tom Simpson, who was a pretty famous architect in his own right, and he submitted it and then withdrew his entry because Fowler was a judge and he was friends with him, and he thought it would be unfair.
And that's it, number 15.
Whoa.
And the other guy was J.C. Walsham out of Harrogate Club, and he was just an amateur architect who submitted this design that later became Rayner's prize dogleg. That's just fascinating to me that everyone knows that hole is Rayner's hole, and it really wasn't. And I have no idea if the original guy got credit or not.
Oh, goodness.
As we walk down the 7th hole, I can't stop thinking about how unbelievably special this is for all of us. We're playing a course that only ever existed in the past, yet it's the future technology that brought us together and made this whole project possible. And so now we're in this exact moment playing a course that no one ever thought we'd ever play again.
This must just be like a ridiculous fairy tale that it's even here. Because there was a point in time where you were probably just a Tom Doak fan.
Yeah, and Old McDonald, you know, his course that was an homage to CB McDonald was one of my favorite courses ever. So.
And now here you are, like, it's not even open yet.
Right.
They couldn't have made it without you. What a wild experience on a golf course.
This is the 12th green, and the next tee is over there for 13. And I'm standing here in the middle of construction, and this bank is really sharp, and it's like, geez, you know, people are gonna fall going down there. It's green to tee walk. What happens in a video game when you putt out on the hole?
Wow, right.
Whew, you're on the next tee.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you start looking on the aerial photo a lot more carefully, and there's a very well-worn track from middle back of the green over there, and you start looking at it harder, and it's like, no, they made a little cut there so you could get out and walk over to the next tee.
Right.
But those are the kind of details he didn't notice because he wasn't thinking about that aspect of the golf course at all. He's just thinking about golf shot.
Was it like easy to
guess that it would be Tom Doak doing this, or was that kind of a surprise?
We're lucky to have a large group of genius architects that we have the opportunity to work with, but one of the most important decisions is matching the architect, the concept, and the piece of ground. And now that we're done with it, I'm confident that Tom was the perfect choice for the Lido, and perhaps even the only choice for him. He and Brian Schneider, who restored it together, are so familiar with C.B. McDonald's work, and I think are so confident in their own abilities that they don't have to rewrite it, right, and edit it. They could just present it as it was.
When you're doing restoration, you have to let go of the creative part entirely. It's like, you know, I'm not even going to think about whether I like this bunker being this deep or in this exact position or not. It's my job to restore it the way it was. You know, I knew from old McDonald when my experience there, it was like, you know, building the Alps hole, the blind hole over the hill on the approach shot. It's like, if I was doing that on my own when I was doing Pacific Dunes, Mike Kaiser would have told me, no, you can't build a blind shot over a hill. But then when you're doing it, when you're McDonald, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, oh yeah, he did that all the time. Those are some of his most famous holes.
So I think the proof's in the pudding, and what they did out there, I guess, confirms that it was the perfect marriage in terms of the project and the architects who restored it.
Wow. What?
Beautiful shot.
That's impressive.
Great shot.
Great putt.
Yeah, good.
Great up and
Nice
down.
putt, dude.
So that's the 18-hole match, and you're one up on the back if you want to play 18 for the.
I think we should do it.
There's nothing like finishing up at this hour, you know? Reminds me of, like, you know, when you were like 8 years old and you'd be like late for dinner?
Yeah.
And you're like, it's like, I'm sorry, I was just like playing, you know? Super.
Right? I think it's hooking off.
It's my tee shot. Wow, closer.
Yeah. I go, do you see that black house?
No. Yeah, I see a house. Yeah.
I go right at that.
Okay.
That was that rocket ship again.
Do you think if you weren't doing like golf courses, like how similar would whatever you're doing be?
I could never imagine having an office job, so I'd be doing something outdoors and I'd probably be doing something involving travel, but God knows what.
It's an interesting question to ask you, but how different is the Lido and its characterization of golf holes from Tom Doak's work?
Very different. But certainly there's pieces you bring in from everything else you've seen. And you know, just like for McDonald was bringing stuff from overseas, and I've had all that same background too. But yeah, I brought from McDonald and different things, and just the idea of building golf courses wider and giving you more ways to play the hole and play around features. But yeah, will what we've done have an influence on some of my other work? Yeah, well, I mean, this was a very bold design for the day. Yes, it does.
That should not have gone in.
Hey, that's good. Good match.
What a match.
Great.
That was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Partner,
That was fun.
you did it.
Thank you. Tom, thank you for
sir.
driving
That
out,
was
man. Thank
amazing.
you.
Hold still and 3, 2, 1. Hold. Fantastic.
Did Michael and I look like we won, or did it show up on camera?
I think the interesting technological questions are the Pandora's box that we have opened, and how Tom and I and others will now use the technology that's existed for 15 years in new ways.
Yeah. This is the first time a complete round has been played on Lido since
1941.
41, so 81 years. That feels like a really cool, like, you can't really do that again, you know? That's one that you can't do again.
No, I just have to go build another golf course so I can do it again.